Good afternoon, CMS families. Thank you for joining us for today's Family Academy Lunch and Learn, the importance of whole child development. Please take a moment to sign in using the bit.ly that is being displayed on your screen, bit.ly/Family Academy sign in. This login link has also been added to today's Q&A. If you are in need of translation supports on today's call, please use the captions feature located in the top right-hand corner of your screen. From there, you'll select Show Live Captions, and then you will select the language of your choosing from the drop-down. Once again, if you are in need of translation support, please select Captions in the top right-hand corner, Show Live Captions, and then select the language of your choosing from the drop-down. And families, we look forward to engaging with you today and hope that today's session meets your needs. If you have any questions on today's call, please use the Q&A feature located in the top right-hand corner to ask any of those questions. Once you click Q&A, a text box will appear. Our Q&A will be monitored during today's call, and all questions will be answered at the end. And families, we want to engage and make sure that you are with us. And if there's any exciting moments, any ahas, new learning, please feel free to share a reaction, a thumbs up, a clap, or a heart emoji so we can ensure that the content being shared is meeting your needs. If you have missed a previous Family Academy Lunch and Learn or are looking for additional resources, I invite you to visit our CMS k12.org/Family Academy. Here you can find all of our future Lunch and Learn sessions, as well as explore our on-demand portal for any previously recorded sessions. You are able to simply search any of the titles or topics to find content that meets your needs. We also have our family portal. This is our free access pathways for all of our families to explore the one-stop shop for all of your academic needs. So as you are looking to continue to support your student this year, please check out both of these resources. And at this time, I am excited to introduce our fabulous presenters who will be sharing the importance of whole child development with Ms. Harris and Ms. Hawkins from our student wellness team.
Good afternoon, families. My name is Rhonda Harris. I am one of two student wellness specialists, and I will provide my colleague the opportunity to introduce herself.
Good afternoon. I'm Hillary Hawkins. I'm the other student wellness specialist here with CMS.
And today we want to start off in our traditional way of getting an idea of how you are feeling today. Many of our classrooms check in with students at the start. So as family members, we want to know if you could please use your emoticons or your emojis on your keyboard to let us know how you're feeling. Are you feeling like you're excited, positively engaged? If so, use one of the emojis that represents a heart or smiling or celebration. If you feel kind of neutral and you don't really know what to expect, go ahead and tap a neutral smiley face or a smiley face with no expression. And if you're feeling curious, you're ready to learn, go ahead and give us that thinking emoji so we can have an idea of where everyone is. And this is not just relegated to right now. At any time during our conversation today, we would like for you to tap on any of those emojis and share how you're feeling. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague to start us off.
Thank you so much. So first, we're going to take a look at our objectives for today. It is our hope that at the end of this session, you'll be able to define social and emotional learning, learn about the 5 competencies of whole child development, explore the benefits of SEL and whole child development, and then receive some parent caregiver resources so that you can use them for your SEL support outside of school. So first, it's important for us to look at the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction's definition of SEL. This is what guides our work. Social and emotional learning is a strengths-based developmental process that begins at birth and evolves across the lifespan. It is the process through which children, adolescents, and adults learn skills to support healthy development and relationships. So, what's really important to point out here is that this is an ever evolving, ever refining, ever growing process. It is not just for our students, but it's for all stakeholders, our community members, our teachers, staff, students, of course. So, it is a lifelong process. So the first area we want to explore is CASEL's 5 domains of SEL. CASEL is the collaborative for academic, social, and emotional learning who guides our research on SEL. And the domains in which SEL takes place are on your screen. You can see that without these domains, students, adults, everybody wouldn't be able to learn and practice those SEL competencies. So the first one, of course, we have classroom, and this is done through SEL instruction and in how the teacher guides that classroom climate. Next, you have in schools. How is that developing a school-wide culture and climate? What practices and policies are in place to really make it a place that your students feel happy being in and resourceful and can practice these competencies? And then, of course, you, the families and caregivers. This is through authentic partnerships. It's very important that we partner with you, and the fact that you all are here today shows that you agree the importance of that school-home connection. Parents are the very first teachers of SEL for our students. So we need your input, your engagement to address the whole child. The research that we follow does say that family and caregivers need to establish relationships with the community and the schools to help our kids in their support and refinement of these 5 competencies. So we really thank you for being here and being a partner with us. And then, of course, in the broader community, we have community partnerships that we work with, and the families will work with to help students grow in their SEL space. So next, we want to dive into the actual 5 competencies of SEL and whole child development. The 5 core social and emotional competencies can be taught and applied from childhood all the way through adulthood and across different diverse cultural contexts. So many school districts, states, and countries have used the CASEL 5 to establish their preschool through high school learning standards and competencies that articulate what students should know and be able to do at each grade level. So it really helps guide the curriculum. And this will allow them to have not only academic success, but school and civic engagement, positive health and wellness, and fulfilling careers. So while we define each core competency separately, it is important to note that they are all connected and related to one another, as you'll see. So the first one is self-awareness. This is about understanding our emotions and thoughts and how they influence our actions. This includes reflecting on personal and social identities and examining our biases. Self-management is the ability to manage those emotions, your thoughts and actions in different situations to achieve our goals. This includes coping with stress and taking collective action to create change. Next is social awareness, how we understand different perspectives, how we empathize with others. This includes understanding broader systems and institutions that influence us in our actions. Relationship skills are our ability to build and maintain those connections with others. So that can include communicating clearly, collaborative problem solving, and standing up for the rights of others. And then finally, we have our responsible decision making, how we make caring and constructive choices for ourselves and others, including analyzing and understanding the impact of our actions and identifying solutions to our whatever issue we're facing. And so as we look at the 5 competencies, we've outlined a couple of behaviors that you would see in someone who is strong in a certain competency. So in our first one, you might see things like, can they identify their emotions? Are they able to recognize their strengths? Do they have a sense of self-confidence? For self-management, This includes things like stress management, impulse control, self-motivation, goal setting, organizational skills. Under social awareness, someone who would be strong in this is somebody who can easily take the perspective of others, empathize, have respect for others. And next is relationship skills. How do they communicate? Do they have that social engagement? Can they work cooperatively? Can they resolve conflicts? And finally, responsible decision making. Somebody strong in this area can analyze their situation, evaluate what needs to be done, make ethical decisions, and solve problems. So, what it really breaks down to is social and emotional learning is how we understand ourselves, how do we work well with others, and how do we make good decisions. This underlies everything, and this is why whole child development is so important, because without these skills, how are we going to be successful in school, in life, in our careers in the future? And with that, I'm going to turn that over to my colleague, Ms. Harris, who will talk about these benefits.
So far you've heard us interchangeably refer to social emotional skills as life skills and whole child development skills. And that's because there has been decades worth of research applied to understanding what universal skill development is necessary for people to obtain success according to their definition of success. And so on this page, you're seeing where they have proven that children who have their whole child skill development attended to, whether they're in kindergarten, pre-K, or on through 12th grade, typically have a consistent positive experience around academic achievement, right? And so the neurologists and the doctors show that brain science indicates that academic learning and success and whole child development or social emotional skill development are intertwined and interrelated, and it's necessary for our students to have these social emotional behavior skills in order to be successful academically. Academic instruction that goes a little bit, that is more impactful, has a component around universal life skills connections to the learning that they're exposed to. So when they're digging deep into their academic standards or the academic instructional topics, whenever we are able to apply and recognize those life skills that are necessary, the learning gets deeper and is more long-term. It lasts with our students. And so, in addition to that, there's been longitudinal studies that show that students who receive whole child development instruction, or that their academic instruction and their social emotional instruction is combined, tend to score higher on their standardized testing. And so they saw that on average, students were scoring 13 percentile points higher than peers who had not had the same level of support around whole child development or social emotional skill development. So with that said, we wanted you to hear specifically from students within this nation who can talk about their experience around social emotional development and why it's important. And we're going to have a couple students here that range from elementary to secondary grade levels that can give us that perspective.
SEL stands for social emotional learning.
It teaches people about how to deal with your emotions and basically helps you through life physically and mentally.
It helps me calm down and become a better person because I have to be able to work together with people.
It helps us communicate in a better way.
It really helped because a lot of bullying has stopped in school.
My dream is to become a leader, to do something great, and these skills are going to help me to reach out to other people, to be able to connect with them in a different way.
If SEL was all around the world, it would be amazing because everybody would be kind to each other and everybody could teach everybody. There would be no wars. It would just be the most wonderful world we could have.
So that is straight from the mouth of children who believe that is important. And I'm wondering, what are some of the things that stood out to you as caregivers and parents from what you saw and heard from that video? And you could place your response in the chat in the Q&A. Do we have any responses so far?
Oh, I think it sometimes takes a minute for us to type. I see one that's
Okay.
come in with the lifelong learners. And I know for me, hearing that video and hearing what's been shared, the academic impact is huge as well.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like our students or the children want the same types of success that parents and caregivers want. And they were able to speak to that in their experiences. So we just want to hone in a little bit more and emphasize the benefits of whole child development and SEL instruction. And we talked about how students who get whole child development support tend to have 13 percentile points performance scoring higher than those who don't. But we also see how students who are more likely to, they are more likely to graduate from high school. They're twice as likely to earn a degree. They're more likely to demonstrate those behaviors that allow them to engage in effective problem solving and to make the choices that are beneficial to them and less at risk. They tend to have more positive attitudes and more acceptance of others, which helps them feel more connected, and they can solve problems without being physically aggressive or have a decrease in the amount of emotional distress that they experience when problems arise. So our schools see increasing behaviors where the students are demonstrating those more desired behaviors, and the parents are able to report that they're seeing more desired behaviors in the home as well. And so this SEL instruction highlight here goes along with our superintendent's message of wanting every child to be able to experience one of the three E's. We want our students to leave our high schools in their 12th grade, graduate, walk across that stage, and either be employed, enlisted, or enrolled in some post-secondary academic setting. So social emotional instruction supports those goals for us and for you. And the research also indicates that children who receive social emotional skill or whole child development um, are getting skill practice that allows them to be more confident, that they have the capacity to develop those positive relationships with both peers and adults, which are necessary for them to be able to advocate for themselves. So we have students sometimes who are high flyers academically and they're very talented, but whenever they're on their own in their first work setting or when they're on their own in their first college classroom, sometimes they don't know how to build the relationships with the adults that they need to turn to for support and help. So these are the things that we want our students to be able to do. We want them to be able to concentrate and to persevere whenever they're facing challenges and to be able to communicate both orally and in written fashions around their emotions in a responsible way. We want them to listen to instruction and be attentive and to be able to solve the problems that may come up socially. And so whenever children don't have these skills, what do you think we tend to see from students or children when they don't have the skills that are necessary for matriculation? And feel free to place that in the chat, in the Q&A. Are there any responses?
So we know that we have the confidence, capacity, concentration, the ability for effective communication, ability to listen and problem solve with those effective social emotional. So one thing that we do see in the Q&A is disengagement as a possibility. And I would wonder about our desire for attendance within our school setting as well.
Those are great responses. Yes, sometimes we see students who may not have this skill be a little more withdrawn. They may increase or engage in more negative self-talk. They might lack confidence, which means they may not take the risks to go above and beyond in completing those classroom projects or making new friends. So everything that you have shared is quite on point. And sometimes we might see externalized behaviors as well, where students might take more risk in in an unsafe way. They may decide to not go to school because they don't feel connected. They may decide to act out physically when trying to communicate a need and be more physically aggressive towards the adults and the students in the building. So we want our students to have the skills necessary for them to matriculate and to successfully move beyond each developmental milestone and each academic milestone successfully. And so I'm going to pass it back to Hillary to start talking about what can we do to reinforce these skills at home that are necessary for matriculation.
Thank you so much. So, we told you what SEL and whole child development is and why it's important. Of course, in the school setting, it is a goal of CMS to include this throughout instruction, and that's kind of the role that Rhonda and I take on, how we can support the teachers and admin in providing these spaces. And so, in being here with you today, we want to give you a couple of strategies and techniques and some resources so that you can continue to support it at home. So, one technique that would fall under self-management, when you or your child is feeling angry, anxious, frustrated, or upset, is square breathing. There's lots of different breathing techniques you can use. In fact, today in a school, we saw a school counselor on the announcements doing the roller coaster breathing, which the kids really loved. But this is just one example, and we'll do it with you now. So it's always great, especially if you're having these high emotions, but really anytime, to just stop and breathe. So we're going to do that here. What we're going to do is you're going to breathe in for a count of 4. You're going to hold it for a count of 4. You're going to breathe out for a count of 4, and then we're going to pause for 4. Okay, so let's do this once. So everybody breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and pause, 2, 3, 4. And you could continue this however much you need to help your child or yourself regulate. So that is just a fantastic opportunity. Lots of different breathing techniques that might resonate more with your child.
Yes, Hillary, I use this when I'm looking for a parking space when I'm shopping.
Right. It's a fantastic time to use it.
Yes.
One that when we were talking about techniques that I had mentioned that I use a lot with my own children is the self-awareness technique. This whole idea of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation, internal or external. As parents, we are so proud of our children when we see them accomplish a big task, and we're very quick to tell them how proud we are, how happy we are. But we want them to do things for their own intrinsic desire to do them, goal setting and goal accomplishment for the sake of how it would make them feel. So these are some things that you might want to start trying with your own child. So if you notice good things, before you say how you feel about that, ask them how they feel. Like, hey, you made your bed without me asking. How do you feel after making your bed? I overheard you saying something very nice to your friend. How did it make you feel to say kind words? This really helps them to identify their emotions, not just to make them want to make themselves proud, which is fantastic, but then the more we can put names to emotions and their feelings, the better, and the better they can understand them. Which takes us to our next slide, the feelings wheel. This is a fantastic tool, and I know it's probably hard to see on the screen. I believe we have it linked in this PowerPoint so you can see it yourself. Great to print out, put it on the fridge or somewhere. Because adults and children alike, we all kind of lack the proper vocabulary for how we're feeling. A lot of times we'll just say those basic emotions in the middle of the wheel, like I'm angry, I'm scared, I'm sad. But let's really think about how you actually feeling. If a student is in a fight with a friend and they just are acting out saying, well, I'm angry. Well, are you angry? Let's look at the angry section of the wheel. Or do you really feel betrayed? Right? Like that's the emotion that they're truly feeling. It's not just all anger, but the betrayal is what they're feeling. Or if they're scared about taking a test, are they scared or are they worried? If they're sad, are you sad or are you lonely because maybe your friends didn't want to hang out tonight? So really identifying the proper emotions will help them to understand them better and then how to cope with those emotions.
And having a broad range of emotional vocabulary, emotional literacy is what we say, is very necessary for them to be able to communicate and to represent or demonstrate those desired behaviors. We want our students and we want our children to understand that every emotion is valid and important. There are no negative emotions. There are ways that we do not wish to feel, but we never make it seem like an emotion is a bad thing. So anger and sadness aren't bad. They're just undesired, right? And the same thing for behavior. There are behaviors that we desire to see more than others. And so it's important for us to teach the behavior we want them to perform in order to increase the more intrinsic capability of them performing that behavior, it being an internalized thing that they own. And in teaching behaviors, there has to be structures in place. So making the bed is a behavior that we often want our children to demonstrate. But the children need to have an understanding of what time do you want me to make my bed at the start of the morning as soon as I get out of the bed? Am I able to make it after breakfast? So if we have to be really clear about our structures and our schedules and our routines so that the behaviors can be demonstrated properly and they can feel more accountable and responsible for what's taking place. So it's so important that once you teach them the behaviors you want them to perform, even teaching them how you wish for them to speak to others or speak to one another, that we offer up rewards. And so verbal praise oftentimes is something that supports the extrinsic behaviors, right? They are looking for us to endorse and to support and rally around and cheer for them. But verbal praise can also increase their ownness to or their willingness to own the behaviors that they're distributing or displaying. And then we also have privilege-based incentives, and these are very popular. With our younger children, a lot of them want to be on their iPads or on the computer. So how do you monitor or structure screen time? Do you make it where they can earn extra 5 minutes or 10 minutes? For your teenagers, do allow them to get on their phones in the evenings for extra 30 minutes after they've completed all the behaviors or demonstrated the behaviors you wish for them to have done throughout the day. So you don't always have to give money, but allowance is a popular one as well. But I tell you, special activities within families where you're sitting down and you're doing something that's specific to you, such as the conversation that you hold at the dinner table or the games that you play, the board games that you play, the memories you create from walking together are the ones that are oftentimes more rewarding because they also create memories. And with that, we're going to share some home activities that help build social emotional skills. Now, as you take a look at this, if there are any that you feel like you already engage in, please put them in the Q&A so we can see which are the more popular ones. And as you're doing that, I'm just going to read off a couple. Students who have a journal are also practicing academic skills too. So having a journal or a diary for any of your children at any grade level is helpful because even kindergartners and first graders can draw pictures of how they're feeling or what they're thinking about their current situation or their day. We walked through earlier the four square breathing. That is a way to practice the coping skills and to be mindful and present in the very situation that they're in, and allows them to take skills and practice skills across circumstances as well. Having a kindness challenge is so wonderful, and sometimes that expands into your community, within your apartment complex or within your neighborhood. Sometimes it's within that child's classroom. And I have a teenager who is 18 years old, and we use conversation starters all the time. And that is my way of talking to him about his day without being an interrogator, because teenagers do not like to be interrogated. They want the conversation to be natural and fluid and not feel like they're trying to are having to be accountable at all times. They really want us to relax. So these are some activities, 12 activities that could help build your social emotional skills and help build those skills that are necessary for whole child development. And when we think of whole child development, we think about academics, social emotional, and behavior skills. Were there any activities that were lifted in the Q&A?
Absolutely. We had some great examples shared. Family game nights have been shared using those conversation starters to share ideas with our children. Also, reading and connecting as a family, going on a walk, all great examples to build that SEL time.
Wonderful. So we already said that we are so appreciative of you as parents and caregivers and family members. We want you to partner with your children's schools. We want you to be present. We want you to be there for us and for them. So, as the first teachers in your children's lives and as the continuous advocates, we hope that you would continue to actively partner if you haven't already actively partnered with your child's school. And in your daytime when you're engaging with your child, try to practice those active listening skills. So active listening skills means the child is able to freely talk, freely express, while the adult is confirming what they've heard without asking too many questions or giving too much advice. So that could take place at breakfast time or any time in the morning when you're riding to school, but you can also incorporate it during your bedtime routines or right before you call it a night, right? Having a feelings chart. There's a feelings chart linked here. That's why it's hyper in the blue, but you can place that on your refrigerator. And a feelings chart is appropriate for any level, whether they are pre-K or in high school. Having problem solving spaces in your house, where children know to go to work it out, where they can call the adult into the space, or whether they can call a sibling or cousin or a friend that's visiting so that they can work out any type of issue that comes up while the person is sharing time with them. And then we also have conversation questions, which are the same as conversation starters, and pairing them with something that's happening in the moment, such as if you're deciding to cook together, or if you're watching a TV show, or as someone mentions, they have a family book study. Use those conversation questions so that y'all can have the time to learn more about each other's perspective. And we're practicing those communication skills. And some of the more popular television shows are listed here, that could be helpful for you to use those conversation starters with. And with that, we want you to know that all of these resources came from these various places, and you can feel free to explore those after your time with us today. But in the meantime, we want to thank you for being with us, and then learn if there are any questions that anyone might have about anything you might have heard or would want to know more about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to Hillary and Rhonda for sharing such valuable and actionable information. It's always wonderful to have ready to go resources that we can pull up this afternoon as soon as we get home and begin having those conversations, looking at those feelings together. Families, if you have any additional questions, please add them to the Q&A. And I would also like to highlight that we have today's slide deck linked in the pinned comment at the top of the Q&A section. We do have one question at this time sharing, how do we help our children develop interoception to recognize when they are feeling angry, anxious, or frustrated? No one likes being told when they're angry.
That is a great question. So sometimes, and it depends on the child, and I'm sure Hillary is going to add to this. It depends on the child. So when the child is experiencing that emotion, you may have to ask them after the event, what did they notice about themselves? Where did they feel the emotion in their body? Did they feel their heart beating faster? Did they feel themselves breathe heavier? Did they feel their faces turn red, or did they feel their body clenching up? And then we can ask them, when we refer to the feelings wheel or the feeling chart, which one of these do you think represents how you were feeling at that time? So beginning to practice that will allow them to start exercising the various words that they can use to describe themselves and what was happening in those moments. What is there something you want to add to that, Hillary?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say the same thing with the feelings chart, especially if yeah, our younger students, if they really don't know how to verbalize those yet. Some of the feelings charts have the little emoticons that help them identify, yeah, that picture really looks more like how I'm feeling. And then the emotions would be written underneath. So those are really great things to have around to help your student understand and identify what they're actually feeling, because it is complex. It's not as easy and it's not a natural skill to know. So we have to guide them and help them in that.
Yes.
Absolutely. Great tips on how to support our students in those moments. Families, if you ever have any future questions or needs for your student for these topics, always feel free to reach out to your child's teacher or reach out to us at the district level for those additional supports, as we are here to support you. We appreciate your time and engagement today. As we have no additional questions, we will go ahead and conclude the call. We hope that everyone has a safe and terrific Thursday. And we hope to see you at a future Lunch and Learn. Have a great day.